I have had a handful of conversations with post-exit founders in recent years who have shared with me a similar story. The deal is done, now they're independently wealthy, their family is happy for them, and quietly, somewhere in the back of their mind, they're thinking, now what? That's a deep question, especially for someone who spent, call it 10, 20, 30 years building a company that's structured their schedule, their identity, their relationships, and their daily sense of purpose. And how you answer that question, now what, or whether you've even thought about it before the deal closes, can determine whether the exit actually feels successful. Because the wire hitting your account isn't the finish line. It's just another Tuesday for an entrepreneur who looks at wealth accumulation as a sign of their ability to serve the needs of others. It is more points on the scoreboard. Hi, I'm Ryan Guth. I sold my business. I wrote a book called Permission to Exit, and today I work with founder-led business owners who are trying to think clearly about what life looks like before, during, and after a sale. Here's what I've learned in my experience. If I were grading founder owners on their exit, I'd give them a C+ if they hit their target multiple, and an A if they had a plan for what's next. The personal readiness component of the exit is as important, if not more important, as the financial one. You can be personally prepared and financially prepared. It's just a matter of starting early enough and beginning the conversation with the right professional. So I want to walk you through what I have seen go wrong after a sale, and more importantly, what the owners who get it right tend to do differently. I'll also explain the Goldfin Moment and why that's our goal for you. And if you want to talk through your specific situation, there's a link in the description to schedule a free call. No pitch, just a conversation about where you are and what's worth preparing for now. Let's start with what I think is the most overlooked part of any exit. A few years ago, I was talking with a founder who had sold a multi-office healthcare business she'd spent over a decade building. It was a great business with strong margins and loyal employees, the kind of company buyers like because it wasn't flashy. It just did the job, and it did it dependably. Well, the exit outcome from a financial standpoint was positive, right? The deal closed, money hit the account, everybody congratulated her. And a few weeks, not a few months later, she went to one of her office locations to grab some mail that had been mistakenly delivered there. She walked in the door, and the receptionist said, "I'm sorry, who are you?" When she told me that story, man, I felt gut punched for her. For years, she was the boss, the culture carrier, right? She woke up with purpose. People needed her. Problems needed solving. Of course, the business gave her rhythm to her days. And then one day, no leadership meetings, no operational fires to put out. No one needed her anymore. No more scoreboard. What surprised her most wasn't the financial adjustment, it was the emotional adjustment. And I think this catches a lot of owners off guard because high-performing entrepreneurs are used to motion. They're used to building and fixing and deciding and leading. When that suddenly stops, there's often a period where people feel genuinely untethered. And that's not because they made a mistake in selling. It's because nobody helped them think through what they were walking toward, only what they were walking away from. This is an important distinction, and it's one that I write about in my book, Permission to Exit, because I have seen it play out. Before we continue, if any of this is resonating, do me a favor, hit the like button. It helps the channel reach the founders who need it most. Okay, so let's move on. Here's something else I have seen consistently. Smart people who make poor decisions after they sell. Owners are particularly vulnerable during the first 12 months or so after a sale, or maybe after their earnout, because they're adjusting emotionally while simultaneously sitting on more liquidity than they've ever personally managed before. That combo can create urgency to get back at it. Plus, once my clients go from rich on paper to actually rich, more opportunities come knocking, right? Private deals, real estate projects, friend of a friend investments, restaurants, startups, oil and gas endeavors, right? These aren't all bad. In fact, I encourage my clients to make investments outside of what I manage for them. We just need to acknowledge where the landmines are. If you've spent your life successfully operating a business, there is a natural tendency to assume that the skill transfers into every investment category. And sometimes it does, but a lot of times it doesn't. Running a successful HVAC company or a specialty contractor business does not automatically mean you're going to become an angel investor overnight. Those are different games with different players and a different set of rules. Plus, there are other things to get done in those first 12 months. One owner described it this way. He said, I spent 30 years building one thing carefully and then spent 18 months scattering capital into 5 things I barely understood. That is a costly lesson, and it's usually not about intelligence. These are smart, caring individuals that put others before themselves. That's how they got rich to begin with, by taking care of others. They want another mountain to climb, though, immediately, because standing still feels uncomfortable and they want to help. That's the big one. They want to solve problems and be useful to others like they have always been. The reality is people start treating you differently after a liquidity event. You get invited to rooms you weren't in before because everybody assumes you want the next thing right away. The healthiest post-exit transitions I have seen happen is when owners slow down for a moment before speeding back up. Not permanently, right? Just long enough to think clearly, to decompress, to reconnect with their family, to understand what they actually want their life to look like before they start making more major decisions. If some of this is hitting close to home, the link in the description will take you to a free call where you can walk through your situation with me together. It's worth having that conversation before things start moving faster than you expect. Now, let's talk about the question most owners never ask themselves. I will admit, as a business owner myself, I don't even like this question because it's scary. However, this is something I encourage every founder to think through. If your business disappeared tomorrow, what would still give your life structure, meaning, challenge, and contribution? That's not a financial planning question, it's a life planning question. And in my experience, it matters just as much because a lot of entrepreneurs think they're chasing financial freedom, but what they're actually chasing is meaningful autonomy. It's different. They want the ability to choose how they spend their time, who they spend it with, what problems they work on, and what pace they operate at. The money is the mechanism that creates the options. But once the business is gone, you still have to decide what to do with those options. That's the harder question. And if nobody's helping you think through it ahead of time, you can end up improvising major life decisions in real time. I mean, I've seen marriages struggle after exits because spouses suddenly spent dramatically more time together without ever discussing expectations beforehand. I've seen owners become restless because they underestimated how much they needed structure and challenge in their daily life. I've seen people make aggressive investment decisions because sitting on cash felt emotionally uncomfortable. And I have seen the opposite too. Owners who transitioned incredibly well because they prepared thoughtfully. They understood their number. They understood their values. They had a plan for capital, a plan for family, and some sense of what role work would continue playing in their life. Not perfectly mapped out, nobody has that, but intentionally. That's the difference. That is what I call the Goldfin moment. The moment they realize they achieved not only their financial goal, but wake up with a clear sense of purpose. The Goldfin moment is the reason we exist as a business. So my clients can solve bigger problems for more people so they can be a greater force for good. That is our mission statement. The owners who tend to enjoy post-exit life are the ones who transition into something meaningful instead of simply transitioning into something profitable. That could be building something bigger or mentoring younger entrepreneurs. It could be serving on boards or building something more flexible. Investing with patience and purpose, or simply operating at a healthier pace for the first time in decades. There isn't one right answer, but there should be an answer. And ideally, you start working on it before the deal closes. So if your business is doing $1 million or more in annual profit, and you've started quietly thinking about what comes next, even just early conversations, that's exactly when this kind of discussion becomes most valuable. So if any of this landed for you, it might be worth a conversation before things start moving faster than you expect. There is a link in the description to schedule a free call. No pitch, no pressure. Just an honest discussion about where you are, what you've built, and what you actually want the next chapter to look like. So if this video gave you something to think about, give it a like, hit subscribe, share it with a fellow founder who might need to hear it. And I know that genuinely helps us reach people that it's meant for. So thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.